Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the December 22nd meeting of the Management Labor Advisory Committee, or MLAC. Patrick Priest, the co-chair and management representative, and it is my pleasure to hand it off to Teresa Van Winkle, who will take roll.
Yes, we'll do that. So I will start with management, and so Patrick is here. And as I see people come in the room, I've been pinning them. So I know Patrick's here and Sarah is here and Tammy just joined us. Good morning, Tammy. And Lynn is here. Let's see, and John, are you here? I don't see him. He might be here, but we do have quorum nonetheless on management side. So for labor,
I'm here.
You're here. Okay. I saw John in, but I wasn't sure it was you. Okay, great. Good morning, John. Okay.
Morning.
No problem. Okay, and so Scott. Good morning. Let's see, and Jill. Marcy. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's see, and Matt is here, and Margaret is here. Okay, so we do have quorum for both caucuses.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Our first item on the agenda, since we're allowed to conduct business, is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting, November 10th, 2022. Is there any comment on the minutes or any questions? It was distributed to us. All right, hearing none, I would be looking for a motion to approve them.
This is Marcy. I motion that we approve the minutes from November 2022.
All right, thank you, Marcy. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
And so I'd be looking for a second as well.
This is Tammy. I'll second that.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion?
Impossible.
Maybe stray talk. I heard impossible. I don't know, but it is possible. We can act on these minutes, and I would be looking for a vote. All those in favor of approving them, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, hearing none.
I'd like to abstain.
I was about to ask that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We got you marked down, Lynn.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Abstention. Thank you, Lynn. All right. Well, it appears as though that has passed. So thank you very much, everyone. And we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is department updates. And the first item is Workers' Compensation Board case law updates, if any. So I would ask if there are any updates to be made at this time.
There are no updates from the board. The next quarterly update for MLAC members will be sent in January. So we'll distribute that once upon receipt there.
Okay.
So shifting gears to rulemaking updates from the Workers' Compensation Division. The division held advisory committee meetings for the Oregon medical fee and payment schedules on November 30th. The temporary fee rules published will allow the usage of new CPT codes. The rest of the annual fee schedule will be published early next year for a April 1st, 2023 effective date. Also, permanent rules were filed to implement the legislation of House Bill 4138 and House Bill 4086, which was dealing with disability rating standards and employer insurance coverage issues. And then there are various effective dates there, which if you'd like, I will put the calendar in the chat as well, so that people have reference to those effective dates. And the calendar does also include the forthcoming permanent rule filings.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the update? Hearing none, I guess you can move on to the next item.
Okay. The next item is the DCBS premium rate ranking study for 2022. And so we have a presentation from Don Galugli, who is from the DCBS Information Research and Technology Service section, or sometimes we call it ITNR for jargon talk. So I will turn it over to Don.
Okay.
Thank you, Teresa. Everyone, am I on?
Yes, I can see you and hear you.
I am sharing my screen. All right. Good morning, co-chairs, members of the committee. Thank you, Teresa. For the record, my name is Donald Gologly. I am a lead research analyst here at the Oregon Department of Consumer and Business Services. My work is mostly focused on the medical benefits side of workers' comp, such as medical fee schedules. This year, however, Amelia Vargas and I stepped in to do the long-running premium rate ranking study, which is what I'm here to talk about today. The research team at DCBS has conducted the biannual study of premiums in all 51 US jurisdictions for 36 years. The study was conceived in the 1980s during a period of high inflation and increasing employer costs. Oregon was known to be among the states with the highest workers' comp costs and also had high rates of occupational injury and illness, as much as 20% higher than the national average. Third, Oregon was experiencing double-digit premium rate increases. Workers' comp premiums in Oregon nearly doubled in the period between 1984 and 1990. The purpose of the study was to enable a fair comparison of premiums. The history of Oregon's position in the ranking shows the effects of policy changes and the economic climate. So the premium rate ranking study was conceived to provide a context within which to study premium in Oregon with respect to the rest of the country. Other studies at that time often didn't include enough states or didn't attempt to control for differences in the mix of industries and hazards, which limited their usefulness. Our study had three goals: to produce a fair comparison of premiums with respect to the variability in the mix of industries. This goal was to find a way to control for this variability and come up with a metric that can be compared across jurisdictions. A second goal was to include all US jurisdictions. And third was to report the findings within the study year. This isn't as much of a problem today. We get prompt responses to our survey, and we have rapid systems for data processing. But in 1986, this was more of an issue. The point is for the results to be relevant to policymakers, and we still work hard to be timely. I will try to be brief with respect to our methodology. It can be admittedly difficult to see the big picture. What we're trying to do with the study, metaphorically, is to put Oregon's industries, Oregon's workforce, through other jurisdiction systems to see how much it would cost employers under that system. Then we rank them accordingly. We start by finding a representative set of occupations or industries and industries. We use the top 50 industries in terms of losses, benefits paid in Oregon. The top 50 this year comprise more than 70% of payroll in Oregon and 63% of losses. The next step is to survey all the states for their premium rates for each of those 50 classes. Among other things, we ask each state, how much is the premium per $100 of payroll in each of the 50 industries? Third step, we factor in administrative costs, taxes, and assessments, which are unique to each state.
But honey,
Is that a question? I think that was background noise. I'll go on. But feel free, if you do have a question, please jump in. I have no problem with that. That was our third step, factoring in administrative costs, taxes, and assessments. Lastly, we adjust the premium rates by Oregon's payroll and some across classes. the sum of the premium divided by the sum of the payroll is what we call the premium index rate for that jurisdiction. These steps serve to put the state's workers' comp system on an even basis for comparison. This chart shows Oregon's premium index rate going all the way back to the beginning of the study. We can see that the index rate continued to climb throughout the 80s, the end of the 80s, and then came landmark reform in 1991. Rates fell steeply through the 1990s. There was a cooling off period here in the 2000s, and our rates have continued to fall since then. This year, Oregon's premium index rate is 93 cents per $100 of payroll. This chart graphs the index rates for all 51 jurisdictions, arranged in a stylized map of the US, beginning in 1994. And there are some interesting patterns that are identifiable here. As we saw in the previous slide, most states had a period of rapid decline in the 90s, followed by some kind of moderation and then further decline. You can see that here with Montana. Oregon does this, South Dakota, Arizona. No jurisdiction had an index rate above $6 since 2004. So we see Hawaii, California got up there, Louisiana. And a few states have had consistently low rates throughout the period. So we're looking at Indiana here, Wisconsin, Iowa. Others have had more volatility. This chart shows the range of index rates from all 51 jurisdictions in 5 selected years. Imagine that we took all the little charts from the previous slide and overlaid them. They would all just fit inside these boxes. You can see that there was a wide distribution of index rates in the early years, getting narrower each year until now. This year, the range in index rates is less than $2. Also shown here is this blue line is the median index rate. Half of the jurisdictions have index rates above this point, and half have index rates below the green line, blue line. And last, the orange line with the square symbols shows Oregon's index rate, where that falls in the group. We were in the top half originally, and we've been below the median since. Now, looking at this year's results in more detail, starting with the bottom quartile, that is 13 states. From this is the bottom when ranked from most to least costly. Right? I've put in numbers going both directions. Sometimes people like to talk about them ranked from cheapest, so you can see both numbers in the rankings. All these states have index rates less than 78% of the median. Oregon's rank in the study, shown here, you all can see my mouse, I hope. Oregon's rank rose from 45th in 2000 to 42nd this year, despite our index rate falling from just over $1 to 93 cents. This is an important point that I think deserves to be reiterated. Oregon's premium index rate, the amount that employers pay for their premium, went down, but our ranking went up because the group as a whole went down more. Because of the narrowing of the distribution of index rates nationwide that we saw in the previous slide, small changes in index rates can lead to comparatively large changes in the ranking. In 2020, Oregon was the 7th least expensive. This year, that spot is held by Kentucky. However, the difference in the premium between the two is just 7 cents per $100 of payroll. There's 93 cents for Oregon, 86 cents for Kentucky.
2010, 98.
Colorado is new to this group, having fallen from just below the median last time, and Tennessee has moved out of this group.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so the ranking, I just want to understand Oregon's ranking here with the 42 and 10. So we're ranked 10th as far as the least expensive, or?
That's correct.
Okay, so the #1 least expensive state in the nation is North Dakota. And so we just go backwards.
That's
in
correct. Exactly
bottom to
right.
the top. Okay, and so then what are we 42nd in?
If you rank them the other direction, from most expensive to least. So
So we're ranked.
we're 42nd most expensive state.
Okay. All right, thank you.
There are, I'll reiterate that. There are 51 jurisdictions, and these numbers just run backwards. The numbers in parentheses run backwards relative to the numbers that are not in parentheses. Next.
I have a question as well, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
So my question is about, if you mind going back to the slide before, is there a difference in, the work comp is by state law? Do you evaluate, like, do they have presumption in these other states, or are there differences in terms of the benefit that make Oregon more or less expensive that you've identified in your work?
There are differences in administrative costs. There are differences in the amount of taxes and assessments that are, and those are accounted for in our study. There are certain things that can affect premium that we can't account for. Dividends from insurance companies, rebates, experience that a company might have, that is losses particular to a particular company. We can't account for those. We do account for taxes and assessments, administrative costs, and so forth. As far as there are a couple of states where workers' comp is not required. We don't make any adjustment for that. Texas, I believe, is one of them, possibly Oklahoma. It's not, this is not something that we attempt to account for. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, somewhat. Thank you, though. Thank you for that.
So next up, we look at the two middle quartiles with index rates between 77 and 120% of the median. There were 14 jurisdictions within 10% of the median. This number seems to be getting smaller, which is, I think, is a curious thing. The number of states in the middle of the distribution is going down. I think it's something that we'll look into as we move forward. Delaware and Montana are new here, having dropped from the more costly quartile last time, and Tennessee rows from the lowest quartile last time. And lastly, we have the top quartile of more costly jurisdictions. These states have index rates greater than 120% of the median. Wyoming, Maine, Minnesota, and Missouri are all new to this group. And New Jersey is at the top of the list for the second time in a row. If you're interested in seeing the full report of the study or other things that the research team does, I've included some helpful links at the end of my presentation here.
Donald, is it possible to get that chart? Could I get that chart emailed to me? Is it possible to get that
Yes,
ranking chart?
I believe that Teresa will attach my slides to the minutes and so forth.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
And once you get that, follow these links and you should see the report there.
Thank you very much.
If you don't, you feel free to contact either of us. Here are our points of contact. We're happy to answer further questions, talk in more detail than I'm able to here. Thank you all. I'd be happy to answer any more questions you have.
Do we have any questions for our speaker? Any additional questions?
I have a question, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. Please go.
Yeah, Scott Strickland. Had a question. So I know you were talking about kind of how you control for the different systems and taxes and other things like that. So you get kind of a purchasing power comp number, if I'm understanding this correctly. Is there any accounting for, I know part of Mahonia Hall was sort of the empowerment of OSHA and this sort of idea that we have, that I know I'm a bit of a broken record about you know, once you have the injury, it's a zero-sum game, and the only way that you can have a win-win is preventing the injury. Is there any analysis for the different, you know, whether there's a state or federal plan of OSHA in these different jurisdictions, or the amount of job site visits or workplace inspections that occur, or kind of any accounting for the safety angle in this as well?
We don't adjust anything to account for those differences. Presumably such efforts affect premiums to the effect that to the extent that safety measures are effective, pure premium rates should fall, but we don't make an extra effort to account for those things.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, Mr.
Galogly. Yeah.
Yeah, David. Yeah, you can ask a question.
Yeah, sorry, I lost power, and so I'm doing this on my phone. What this shows is what the cost is, but it doesn't show what is purchased. And what I mean, the question is, it's showing what business are paying, but it's not showing what that money buys. So a state could have a low cost, but have a very strong system of benefits, or a state could have a low cost and have absolutely poor benefits. So this just shows what it costs, but not what you're getting for that cost, correct?
That is true. That is true. States' systems differ greatly in the benefits that they provide. And there have been efforts, not by us, but by others, that to produce a similar sort of index of benefits. But in this study, we're focused strictly on premium.
Does the data account for frequency and severity of each claim?
No. No, we don't count claims. Strictly how much is paid for coverage.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Scott, is your hand raised again?
Yesterday, Carmen was here. Yeah.
Yes. One other question, I guess. So it's I know it's cost to employer. Is there any metric? I know it would be outside the scope of probably this study, but any metric of sort of a cost to worker or cost to community? Kind of getting on that idea of the number of the scope of the benefits that are provided, the amount of time loss that's covered. Again, that zero sum idea of if the cost isn't on the employer, if the injuries occurred, it's on somebody, whether it's, the insurer or whether it's, and they're just eating the cost and not passing it on, or it's the state, or it's, the worker or their community or something, or the employer, but not through their premium. In many cases, right. I was just wondering if that was captured in any way, or if there was any effort to either develop a study to do that, or if there was another one out there that does that.
Again, we don't account for those costs. We most every state, I believe maybe it is every single state, has a policy of not passing costs to the worker. The injured worker is exempt from those costs. So we don't attempt to go beyond the premium with this study. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Donald, I had one question as well that came up. There's a lot of questions about it, a lot of picking at what the results are, and you did a very good job of presenting how you came up with the results and what they are. And it's from the department. Why is this report created by the division, and what is it used for? And are there any conclusions that you draw from it? And is it used in other areas?
So it was created as a means of supporting policy decisions, and I think effectively used to that end. That was before my time at the department. It has since been it's won several awards from workers' comp organizations nationwide. It's highly anticipated by all the states. I presented the results of the study at the International Association of Industrial Accident Boards and Commissions conference last September, and it was well received there. We continue to do the study because it's so widely anticipated, and I believe it's continues to be helpful in supporting policy decisions here at the department.
Well, great. Well, congratulations for that. It sounds like Oregon is helping many with this study. They use it in other states to help them as well. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I believe so, yes. And thank you. And I won't take too much of the credit. As I said before, this is my first year running the study. It's been something that the research team has produced. Is passed down through a number of analysts, and we've all tried to put our own additional contribution to it. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you bet. All right. And so Teresa has added into the chat the study itself so that we can look at it in more detail. There's lots of interest, but any other questions?
Thank you.
On the study. Seems in general good news that Oregon is among the lower costs, so that's nice to know.
I believe so, and continuing to costs continue to fall.
Yeah.
I believe that's a good sign.
Good. All right. Well, I think that is that agenda item, and so for the next one, it is an update on MLAC staffing. I don't know if Teresa is giving this or perhaps
It'll be Andrew.
Director Stolfi. It's
Yes.
you again? Okay.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And happy Thursday, week before the holidays. Hope everyone's ready for the snow and ice that's on its way. Or David, you said you're without power. Maybe it's hit some of us already, but glad to be here again, and as usual. And have two things I wanted to talk about. They're share a theme of transition and transitions, and it's something that we're seeing a lot of. Of course, we've got a governor's transition, a lot of legislators transitioning, and we have some here as well. So first, it's no surprise, but we have someone, and I saw her name, and hopefully I'm sure she's still here. But today will be the last meeting for Jennifer Flood, who has been with DCBS for 44 years. There you are. Hey, Jennifer. She's been with DCBS for 44 years. I think she started in second grade working here, and has been ombuds for 17 years. And really hard to put into words just how meaningful she's been in that role for so many people. Not only the injured workers that she and her team have helped over the years, but for a lot of you and countless other stakeholders participating in MLAC and in our workers' comp system, and even over the last year in our OSHA safety and health system. So I can't let another meeting go by, especially the last MLAC meeting, without thanking Jennifer again, although there's no amount of thanks I think that would equal what we owe her for everything that she's done over all those years. And let me pause there. I do see you, Jennifer, if you want to share a goodbye or anything, and if anyone else would like to say anything, I think we can.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. It's been quite the ride, and MLAC is a very important I don't know what advisory, there we go, to ensure that all the voices are heard, and making sure that workers and the issues that they face are out there. So trudge on, shine bright, and happy holidays to all of you. Thank you for always being there.
Congrats, Jennifer. I take it you retired. We've been talking about that for a while. You will definitely be missed. I think you and I worked together for like, I don't know, 30 years now. So you will definitely
Maybe
be
40.
missed. Maybe 40, maybe 40. Anyway, thank you for all you've done. You will
Thank you.
definitely be missed.
Thank you.
I see Scott has his hand raised. Probably wants to make some comments.
Yes, I just second all of this. You know, Jennifer's been an invaluable asset for me in helping make sure that we're capturing other voices in this discussion of the issue that touches all working Oregonians and everyone else. And I know, you know, from my personal experiences as a now medically stationary worker, laying there crippled on the couch trying to navigate the system, the ombuds office was an invaluable asset that helped me push through and make sure that my claim was processed properly, and that I was able to enforce my rights in a way that made sure that I was able to get back to work and make sure that my mortgage payments were still made in my multi-generational home. So I mean, an invaluable asset to workers' compensation workers and all in the state of Oregon. I cannot thank you enough, Jennifer, for your work.
Thank you. And I have a huge team behind me that does all the heavy lifting.
All right. Anyone else?
I just, me personally, I have worked with Jennifer for less time, and it's been mainly virtual, but I can tell you that I really appreciated all of your reports. I think I've been spoiled by knowing all of the information explained so well, and it's going to be big shoes to fill. I just want to join with everyone and congratulate you on a distinguished career, and I wish you much happiness in your retirement. You deserve it.
Thank you. And the shoes will be fine. I'm sure, Andrew, you're going to do the intro.
Yep.
of Barb, but, and as I said,
Okay.
my team of assistant ombuds, are working hard every single day, taking those challenging calls and, really listening and taking care of those workers that contact us. Thank you all. We're done with me now, right? Go on.
Yes,
Thank
I've had
you.
to drag Jennifer through weeks and months of thank yous and public love. So, but she deserves it and glad to share it.
It's all appreciated. I don't like attention on
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yes, yeah.
Thanks, bye.
All right. Well, so Jennifer's retirement is not a surprise. So it's something we've been known about and been planning for quite some time. We went through a very robust recruitment that has concluded, and by so it's the ombuds position is created in statute, and in statute it's appointed by the director, by me, with the concurrence of the governor. And we went through a very open process with lots of stakeholder interviews as well in the final phase. And I'm glad she just popped on the screen now. Some of you might know Barbara Anderson. She's been appointed by me with the concurrence of the governor-elect to be the next ombud. So Jennifer's last day is December 31st, and Barbara's already been working with her and the ombuds team on a transition, and will formally officially take over as ombuds on January 9th when the governor-elect is sworn in. Barbara's has a couple decades of experience herself in the workers' comp system, has had a series of different roles. She started out right out of school in the in the workers' comp division and administrative support roles, and has worked her way up through to management and worked in a couple different divisions units within the workers' comp division. So she's got a really great level of understanding and experience, broad experience with the workers' comp system, which is one of the biggest parts of the ombuds role. So that will definitely be a benefit to injured workers, and really excited to have her in this role. I know she's very excited, and Barbara, I'll let you say hi in a second, but just wanted to give a little background introduction to her. So Barbara, glad if you want to say hi to everyone, to give you some time.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I recognize some of your faces, not all of them, though. Yep, I've been around for 24 years in February. I am super excited and honored, actually, to step in behind Jennifer. I know she says that the shoes will be fine, and I'm sure they will be, but her shoes are definitely going to be hard to fill. But I'm super passionate about helping people, so I think this is a perfect role for me, and I'm hoping I can do it justice. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, Barbara. And I'm sure she'll be reaching out to a lot of you individually to introduce herself and have some chats. And as always, Barbara and the ombuds team are there to help. So to help the committee, to help all our stakeholders, and to help injured workers, of course, as well. So again, Jennifer, congratulations. Good luck on your retirement. Barb, really excited to have you in the role. So that's the first set of transitions. One more thing to share with everyone. Our co-chairs know about this, but we're having just some internal transitions as well around the MLAC administrator role. So as you probably all know, DCBS is statutorily charged with supporting MLAC. I'm sure we would do it even if we didn't have to by statute, and it's something we take very seriously and are really committed to supporting this committee and doing everything we can to have the committee be successful. And we support the committee in lots of different ways. Of course, you see Teresa as the face, a lot of that representation. She's the MLAC administrator. You've seen Kara Filsinger quite a bit. You see Sally and Matt. And a lot of other folks at the workers' comp division. You've seen Connie and a lot of folks at the board as well that support the committee. Today, you got to see Don, who's part of the research team here at DCBS. So we've got a large agency, 900 people. Maybe not every single one of them could help out, but it's a huge team of folks who are here to support the committee, and anything and everything that the committee needs that the co-chairs ask us to do, we're here and we'll figure out exactly who can do it and how we can support it. As for the administrator, Teresa has been in that role for years now. I'm not sure how many, and I think, and I've seen her do a great job, and have heard that from the committee as well, and the co-chairs. The reality is, though, that Teresa, like all of us, only has 24 hours in her day. And in addition to being MLAC administrator, she's also DCBS's legislative director, which is a pretty significant role. We're one of the largest state agencies, and we have a lot of our own legislative concepts that we work on. And there are a lot of legislative concepts that affect our agency, from financial sector to building codes to workers' comp, of course. So I've been director for a little over 2 years now. I've seen a long and a short session, and kind of looking up to the next long session next year, decided that kind of need a full-time legislative director. I'm sure and hope you can all appreciate that. So what we're going to do, and we talked a lot internally about this, and I've chatted with the co-chairs, so they're fully aware of this as well. Teresa will transition away from being the MLAC administrator, and we've already been working on this transition. And Kara Filsinger, who's been working and supporting MLAC and has been at the Workers' Comp Division for many years herself, will formally take over as the MLAC administrator on January 1st, or January 3rd, it's Monday, but in January, and perform that role as the MLAC administrator, supporting the committee, that point of contact. Teresa will still be very involved in MLAC as legislative director. Of course, MLAC deals with a lot of legislative issues, so she'll of course still be involved, but not in that kind of day-to-day administrator operational role. And the last thing I'll mention, just so this isn't a surprise for you all, next year, Kara, as some of you probably know, is retiring herself, but not until next summer. So we get a full session and most of the year with Kara being the MLAC administrator. We'll start a recruitment for Kara's replacement in the spring, and as part of that job responsibilities, it'll be MLAC administrator will be part of that. So there'll be another transition and another MLAC administrator, but not till after session. So we'll be able to get through all that together. So with that, happy to answer any questions anyone has, but just want to fly right there. Want to just recommit the agency to supporting the committee as much as needed, and whatever the co-chairs and the committee and the co-chairs ask us to do, we're of course here to do. So thanks. I'll turn it back over to you, Patrick.
All right, thank you, Director Stolfi. Do we have questions or comments from anyone on the committee about the second staffing change in administrator? I have one question. Yeah, Marcy, I see your hand.
Yes, for the record, this is Marcy Grail, and I would just like to say thank you to Teresa. I was hesitant, I guess, about taking this responsibility, and your commitment and dedication to your many hats that you wear shone through, because you were answering me at the stupid hours that I was emailing you. So I hope that we could all appreciate and recognize the director's acknowledgement that there is only 24 hours in a day. And I think we've all learned during COVID that we're all overextending ourselves. And I just cannot thank you enough for the effort that you've put forth with me personally to help me acclimate to this position. So thank you.
Any other comments?
I'm sorry to see you go, Teresa. I mean, I'll be going next year too, but Thank you for everything.
You're welcome. And actually, I'm not going away. It's just in a different role. And actually going back to what Andrew was saying too, and my role as legislative director, it's also not just following the bills that directly impact us, like what the agency introduces. It is all the other bills that impact all the regulatory functions of the agency or agency operations. And it's also education as well. The legislature has a record turnover. It might be record, if not, it should be. There's at least, 30, the House, there's going to be so many new House members. I think it's around 30. And so it is one of my big roles in my position as legislative director is to do outreach, and which that's also includes talking to all those new members and reminding the current members, if they're coming back, about the importance of MLAC and its role in the workers' compensation system and making Oregon, the system, one of the best in the nation. So between that and a few other things, yeah, I will do my best to be at every meeting too, and also to help Kara in regards to shepherding bills and being the liaison between the committee and legislative committees as well.
Okay, I guess I'll join in echoing I said it privately when we met as co-chairs to hear about this, but and in keeping with Marcy, I was new to this and you were very helpful with me to help me acclimate and feel comfortable, especially starting my first meeting. I was the chair of it, and it was a weird experience, but you had a very steady hand and guided me through all of it. And I'm very happy for you because I know how busy you are, and I know legislative director sounds. I mean, I'd like to think MLAC is the most important thing that DCBS has going on, but I'm sure legislative director is a bigger role, and I appreciate that you're going to continue helping us a bit. But I just want to thank you, publicly and congratulate you. Yeah. And then also, I guess I have one question because, Kara's on the call. You have Kara who also does a lot. And so it sounds like you're going to be maybe switching roles, or is Kara going to have other support, kind of like a Kara person to help her?
I don't want to speak on behalf of the division, but yes, there they are. So there is plans to have continuing support as well for the committee. Also, they can in administrative roles like the minutes and all of that. Also, too, if Kara cannot attend a meeting, I definitely can step in, being the guest administrator, if you will. Yeah, it's just making sure too that especially for session and how we don't know what the schedule's like for committees, that you all will have a steady leadership from the division and the department.
Yeah,
and helping you through your work.
Yeah. It's just to add to it, it's always taken a village, so to speak, right, to support MLAC. And Sally, who's on here, has always given a lot of workers' comp division resources and was very involved and instrumental in this transition, and she's here and can confirm that if you need. But she's of course committing to further supporting, and there'll be other people around Kara helping out as well.
Yeah. Sally gives thumbs up, so thank you for that. And I see Tammy has her hand raised again.
Yes, before we lose Andrew, I'm just wondering about, like the confirmation that will be coming forward from the new governor. I know that there's a couple people on here right now that have put in their applications, and is there any timeline?
I actually can speak to that, since I'm getting, as the board administrator, I along with other board administrators throughout the different entities throughout the executive branch, receiving updates from the executive appointments office as they're available. So they're also in transition, just like every other office within the current administration, transitioning to Governor-elect Kotek. So there is no time frame. I believe, and I have an email out to the office, making sure that those applicants who have applied now, that they will stay in the system. Worst case scenario, I've downloaded their information. If it needs to be re-entered, we will let those candidates know, but it will not be lost, and it shouldn't be. But we're as soon as I know, since we've got all the contact information, we will let the potential candidates know, and we will let the committee know as well. So you're up to speed.
Kind of in keeping with that, I was a new committee member not that long ago, and there was a pretty comprehensive onboarding process and orientation that I know took a lot of staffing, I would imagine. I know it probably took a lot of time and energy to do that. And the time is pretty short and it's during the legislative session. Is there any planning being given to how that will occur for our new members?
I believe it's on the list. I'm looking at Kara, so we'll see how it, yeah. We will do our best to get that in. Worst case, I mean, poor Scott started during the pandemic, literally like in the middle of legislative review. We want to try to avoid that. Yeah, we'll do our best, but there might be some restrictions, such as since we don't know all of the bills that'll be in front of you all for review. There's that factor as well, but we'll do our absolute best to make sure that the new members will get the same level of orientation as all of you. It may take a little longer, but we'll do our best.
Okay. And maybe that's something for the work plan as well to talk about. One last thing, and with the staffing, and I emailed in advance about this, was there was some comments that committee members are required to do some trainings. And
Yes.
there's confusion about what trainings those are, and people have tried to find them. And
Yes.
I understand some emails went out recently about things that are due. I didn't get one, but
No, you did not, because you somehow completed it. And so and this is probably for the audience as well. This is for boards and commission members. There are trainings for member to take on public records, a couple of IT practices. I think they're essentially identical to the annual trainings that myself, Andrew, all of us at DCBS have to take as a state employee. There's some glitches in Workday. This is the first year that Workday has been used for board and commission members. And so as I'm learning things, there are things that are like lacking. So for example, I'm not sure if you all, I think I have to go back in my email to see if you are able to reset your password yourself, or if I literally need to, or Kara, or Brittany need to set up an appointment with each member to send out a link, because I think it expires in like 15 minutes. It's a ridiculous turnaround time, but it has to, it can only be manually done for some reason. I'm not sure. So I have a series of questions of that nature. I do know that if you do not take them by the end of the year, you're not going to be automatically kicked off as a board commission member, and the trainings are the same. So what I pledge to do, and I've started the process, is getting an email to all of you with what I understand to be the directions for resetting your password. Once that happens, you should be able to get that information, and then I believe I can send you the links as well. One of the other glitches is once somebody takes the training, I don't have the, like, for example, once I take the training, because the links are the same, I don't have access to that link to send to you all. So it's very glitchy. But again, I pledge on taking care of that before the end of the year, for all of you to have. And so we're all up to speed on that.
So I am up to speed for this year, but after
You are, yes. And I believe you are the only one, I believe. We went through, Karen and I went through each of your records for that. That's another glitch too. I do not get notifications on who gets training or not, which is different than what employees get. Like my supervisor gets notices if I've not taken the mandatory training, or there are changes. If I put in requests for something like leave.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry that you have to deal with that hassle here at the end of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I know Sarah has a question, but Marcy may actually have insight, because I know Marcy has to deal with this too, through her other board appointment. So that's one of the other glitches too, is that Marcy may have records with her training records with the Energy Siting Council and not with MLAC. So.
Yeah.
And that was going to be this is Marcy for the record. That was I saw the emails, but I was trying to figure out, are they FSEC or MLAC, and do they talk to each other?
That's one of my questions. And it actually, I may flag it to be actually a case, because I believe you're not the only one that has this issue. Andrew actually does, because Andrew's an employee, but is also ex officio member of MLAC, and is also a standing member of various statutory committees as well in his DCBS director role. So it may be something in the works, but I have flagged that as well, so that you get credit for both, Marcy.
Thank you. And I have a time blocked off next week to try to dive into that. So feel free to.
Okay.
Thank you.
If it helps, I basically took the same training 3 times because of the things that I'm on. So that was my fix or my workaround for glorious workday.
Okay, well, you know.
Yeah. Hey, Sarah, did you still have a question? Yeah.
I do. Thank you. Teresa, I didn't get an email, so can you check mine? Because I know I've taken the 2.
Yes.
And but
Yeah, and I
my-
thought you did, yes. So yeah, I'll go backtrack as well, and I can check with the IT folks at DAS as well.
Okay, so my next question is, there's a 3rd training that I've been asking for now for a year.
Mhm.
That I still don't know how to take.
Okay,
It's the board training.
it's the board training. Okay, we will look into that as well.
And I don't understand.
I
where it's
don't,
at.
I don't either, because you should be able to have access to all 3, like Patrick did. So yeah.
No, he doesn't, he never took the board training
You
either.
didn't take the board training. Oh, that's right. You did not either. You had the other 2, but not the board training itself.
It's the 2, not the board training. It does not exist. I've searched it on Workday on my own to try to find it and take it. So I don't believe anyone has taken that training.
Okay.
I see Margaret shaking her head. No,
Okay.
you haven't taken it either. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm sorry we're leaving you with a problem to deal with before the end of the year, but
This is not the, it's that time of year. So it's, it's expected as well. Yeah. But yeah. And again, if anything, really, it's my apologies to all of you for the hassle in all of this too. It's been frustrating.
I think it was a nice assurance that those that really enjoy their position on MLAC and want to make sure they're meeting their requirements
Yes.
feel comfortable that by the fact that they cannot find them doesn't mean that they'll be kicked off the committee.
Yeah, I assure you of that. Also too, because since all of us, again, from the department, we don't take the board training, but I do know what it looks like. And I do know those parameters, that if there was something that was egregious, we would have privately said something. So you all are doing in that regard, just fine. But I do know it's a requirement. So yeah, we will, it's a high on my to-do list to take care of.
Thank you for that. And then Andrew, just one other question, just as when you made your comments about Kara's upcoming retirement, that you were going to be recruiting, is that an external recruitment, or do you have somebody that you're grooming to take that role within your department and your one of the biggest departments in the state, I understand. So
Well, I see Sally popped on. Maybe she'll want to address that.
yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Sally Cohen, Administrator, Workers' Compensation Division. Yes, we are actively planning for Kara's retirement. And as Andrew mentioned, we'll be opening a recruitment this spring. We do plan on opening up an open recruitment for that. We do have some internal folks who have shown some interest, and we have folks who are doing some job shadows and looking to more, gain some more skills that may be relevant to the position. So it's of interest to folks internally, but we will be opening it up for an open recruitment. So.
Yeah. And I did receive some messages, while the meeting's going on, about there may be some interest from those on MLAC to provide input if it was welcomed. I don't know if that's something that the division would be open to.
Yes, we'd certainly, Matt West and I, we would love to hear from MLAC members if you have input for that.
Yeah, maybe as you open the recruitment, we could make that one of the department updates. And then
yes, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to do that, Patrick.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else on this? All right, well, thank you very much. I believe that is the end of the department reports. And unless there are any others, Administrator Van Winkle, do you have our last time that we get to call you Administrator Van Winkle? Do you have any other updates for us?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the Subcommittee on Worker Continuation of Care. And the first item is to get a report from the subcommittee. And Sarah is on the line and Matt as well. I don't know which or both want to speak.
I'm happy to
start off, we had a, I think our meeting was last week, where we heard from the Oregon Medical Association, a couple more physicians, to look at some of the proposed concepts that came from a letter drafted by SAFE after stakeholders got together and met. We didn't come to any real hard conclusions. We are referring to the Medical Advisory Committee to have them assess whether or not a best practices statement is appropriate for the situation. And then we have put on hold any further meetings of the subcommittee while folks dig for more evidence of the problem. I think that's a somewhat fair summary from my vantage point, but happy to have Sarah correct any inconsistencies or misinterpretations there.
No inconsistencies. Sorry, I'm not on video today. I'm dealing with an illness. I think what we did here was that the medical community, was under the assumption or thought that, or MAC specifically felt that a standard of care to have routine follow-up appointments for workers' comp cases, to make sure everyone was involved in the care and the healing process. So, the medical community seemed to feel that standard of care was to have routine follow-up appointments. And I just, that felt that was heard pretty consistently throughout. Do you feel that was the case, Matt?
Yeah, I think that's where some of the confusion came in, is every provider, except for maybe one, that that had a conversation with the subcommittee, and I think what came to a total of around 7 meetings, seemed to find that this is the standard of care. And so we weren't, I think that's where the concern of, well, where are the gaps in that standard occurring? And then what is an appropriate remedy? And so identifying where those gaps are occurring seemed to be a priority before before we could see what some potential solutions are.
But we do have one of the recommendations that Matt did state was for MAC to evaluate whether it wants to put forth a best practices statement for doctors. And I believe they're going to, it's on the agenda for their January meeting.
Hello, come on in. How are you? Yeah, sorry, my name.
I'm doing well. All right, any other questions or comments for our subcommittee co-chairs? I would like to just sort of repeat what I understood is the report of the subcommittee and maybe ask for a motion to approve their report. And what I'm hearing is that the subcommittee's work is concluded for now. They are in suspending further activities and waiting for a recommendation on a best practice recommendation from the medical community or additional evidence of the problem from industry or from companies. Did I hear it correctly?
So MAC, it's the Medical Advisory Committee. We have asked them to evaluate whether they want to put forth a best practices statement, and that will be on their January agenda. And then going forward, we will reopen the subcommittee with agreement with both chairs if data is brought forth as to the extent of the problem. But the medical community seems to believe that it is standard of care to continue to engage in care, in follow-up appointments for the continuation of care for an injured worker.
Thank you for the clarification. For our minutes, do we have that documented, do you think, well enough, Teresa? I don't, or whoever's taking the minutes? The report?
That's a good question. I'm pondering about the last part of the reopening of the subcommittee.
Well, we're currently, on a pause.
On a pause, yeah. Mhm.
And then if data is brought forth to the subcommittee and both chairs agree to reopen the subcommittee, we will at that time.
Okay. Or we could summarize it.
I think that was the recommendation by you, as an action we could take is just a pause.
Yep.
On the subcommittee and wait to reopen it with agreement of both chairs.
Mhm.
And that's how we ended, I believe, the last meeting.
Yep, that I agree. That's what I heard as well.
Okay, so we're
Matt, did I capture that well?
Yeah, I agree with that. And then as far as the medical advisory committee, I don't think our subcommittee has much more. It seems like it's in their, the ball is in their court. We don't dictate how they're going to operate, and we don't have to give approval for what their decision is or have involvement, as far as I understand it.
And I agreed that it would be nice if they just determine a best practices statement is made. I would love to have it come back just so we can see it. And maybe Sally can help with that.
Yeah, we're happy to talk to the committee about that when we meet in January.
And then maybe give a follow-up if they've decided to put a statement forth, or bring that statement to us just for posterity.
Right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Right. Well, I think there was some clarifications. Administrator Van Winkle, experienced Administrator Van Winkle, can you summarize the report and maybe ask for a motion on what exactly it is we'd be agreeing to?
Okay. So what I believe what the motion would be is to accept the subcommittee recommendations from the subcommittee as follows, to request and receive feedback from the medical advisory committee in regards to the subcommittee's refined problem statement, and to reopen the subcommittee at the call of the co-chairs if additional work needs to be done, including the analyzing data received related to the, now I'm drifting off, but
That seems pretty good. I don't know. Margaret, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, Teresa, could you restate the first part? Because it's my understanding that we have asked MLAC to, or excuse me, not MLAC. We have asked the Management Medical Advisory Committee to consider whether or not to issue a best practice statement.
Mm-hmm.
Am I understanding that correctly? We're not telling them that.
No.
We're asking them to consider whether or not they want to do it.
It is a request. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. That's good clarification. Any others? Do people feel ready to somebody make a motion to approve that subcommittee report or accept it?
So are we approving that they've paused to see what, are we approving that we've paused to see what management or medical advisory committee says yes or no to best practice? Is that what we're approving?
I think, Tammy, what we're approving is the report that the subcommittee just gave, and then the next item on the agenda is discussion. And then in the discussion section, we could say, we don't like what the subcommittee said, if that's what you're thinking, or I want to refine what it is. I think that's the way that I would characterize the agenda, but I'm open. I don't know. Do you want the subcommittee to consider something different than what they stated, or just?
No, I was just wondering what we're approving. I didn't realize we had to
Yeah.
approve what they just told us, but so moved, approved.
You,
I nominate to approve it, what they just told us.
yeah. Okay. All right, Lynn.
I was wondering that rather than accepting or approving the report, that we just move to accept the report.
Yes, I think that's, I said that afterwards, I think is a better way to say it, accept it. Acknowledge that we all understood it and accept it.
Yeah, and I probably would add, I don't think there would be an additional necessary to add on a vote for the closure or the tabling the subcommittee, because the co-chairs can reopen or establish a new subcommittee under the bylaws at any time. So I think that can be understood, and during the discussion, the co-chairs can speak, their intent. And again, it can also be on a future MLAC agenda.
Okay.
Or added on to the work plan discussion as well.
All right. So Tammy, you made a motion to accept it. Is that okay? Did I understand that? Yeah, good. All right. Is there a second to accept that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those that move to accept the report of the subcommittee as Administrator Van Winkle described it, please say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to say again, I want to thank the chairs of the subcommittee. It was, I think, more work than I thought from the beginning of it, and they were very dedicated and listened to a lot of information. And I appreciate being volunteers, how much time and energy they put into this. So thank you very, very much. And on from that, we'll move on to committee discussion on recommendations. Is there further discussion of the work of the subcommittee, or anything maybe related to it that you would like to bring up and consider? I see Tammy's hand raised.
Well, I just want to know, once we hear from the medical advisory committee on if they make recommendations for best practices or don't, that's reported back to us, and that we make a decision then if, they're going to put out best practice, so our portion's done, or if they're not going to, and they want, it seems like we need to have some sort of a follow-up once we hear what their best practices are, if any, and if that resolves the problem. I'm just wondering about that. What's the plan about all that?
Go ahead, Teresa.
Okay. I suspect that, I think we'd obviously take next formal steps after the, I don't have a time frame in regards to when they would have feedback. I do know that this will be presented at their next meeting, which is on January 20th, I believe. But yes, I think that is in the plan, and I will coordinate. I was saying, Kara, actually, I need to stop saying I. Kara will coordinate with her colleagues to provide feedback to MLAC when the feedback is formalized, and that will be added onto the work plan as well. So that's not lost in them.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion? All right, I guess we will wait and hear if we get a best practice to consider or further data. All right, thank you very much. We'll move on from that to the last item on our agenda, which is review of the MLAC work plan, just added in as a placeholder before the next meeting. Maybe we'll be a little busier with perhaps bills to consider. Just pausing and taking time to look at the work plan that was put together. I believe, Scott, you were involved with that, and Lynn, in putting this together to begin with, and we have revisited it at least once. And I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to read through the work plan, and if they had any comments on anything that's on it, I'd open the floor. Lynn?
I don't have comments about what's on it as much as it would be good if, and I've missed a lot of meetings, so maybe you've talked about this already, that we choose something to start with and actually dedicate some time to doing it. Certainly the first two items on the work plan, the workers' access to information and ongoing intimidation and retaliation are two issues that I'm sure continue to be timely, and it'd be great to get a start on it.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. Does anybody want to express a preference for something to focus on first?
Number one, it's top of the list.
Number one. Okay, there you go. That's what I was going to recommend. We're thinking alike. So obviously it was the first thing thought of.
I thought some of this was already in the works. I don't believe we've received any updates. And I thought from one of our meetings in June, there was some stuff going to be in place by the end of the calendar year.
Let's see. Is there one of those that stands out to you that maybe then the division could comment on?
Mr. Chair, Sally Cohen
Yeah,
here. I can
yeah.
speak to this. The division has been working on our project to streamline communications to injured workers. And I believe that's what Sarah is referring to. We have been working on that. We have a communication that will be going out this week to stakeholders, giving an update about that. But a little preview for you is that our team has been actively working on identifying areas in the administrative rules where there is standard specific language that is required to be used. And so the team is focused. This is a huge project. And so that's where we started. That was the place that seemed to, the best place we could get our hands around. Where do you start on such a huge thing? And so we started with the required language to injured workers, and our team is working on making recommendations there to those required paragraphs that are mandated by rule, and identifying which ones could be improved, and we'll be recommending changes to rulemaking. So we will have a communication coming out about that.
Thank you for that update. I have two hands raised. Let's start with Marcy.
Thank you. Sally, one of the questions I have is you indicated that your stakeholders get to review things. Do you conduct, and I will lower my hand when I get that back up, but do you do you do a focus group on massive projects when you look at those types of things, or run any type of alpha test with potential? I mean, I realize we can't go around and grab people who are hurt, but just from different populations to try to test it out before you go too far down the path. Because my opinion and my experience is my breadth of knowledge of things when I look at things as a stakeholder or a union representative is very different than what my members do, because they don't hear the language, they don't see the language, they don't have the same context to come from. And I was just curious on how you test out your communication.
Thank you, Marcy. We did have a stakeholder meeting, and for projects like this that you mentioned are so big, it's like, where do you even start on it? We that's where we did start, was with general stakeholder meeting. We invited everyone who has subscribed to receive our notices, and so we do try to cast the net very widely. But I'm sure there are communities that we are not in reaching, and so if anyone has ideas about further communities we could reach out to, we'd love to hear that. But we do try to start with a focus group, stakeholder group, to get information on the front end before we implement rulemaking, which we do always have a public advisory committee during the rulemaking as well too. So
thank you for that. I guess I see, like, for example, about the QR code and the 801 form. when I, just for your knowledge, so I sit on the Oregon Energy Facility Siting Council, and people who are engaged in these type of things, like this is what they're doing, they're in it. I'm thinking like, asking, an employer, hey, can we test this out with one of your employees? Let somebody who would actually be, potentially using it. So it's not so much the stakeholder aspect of it, because I recognize with rulemaking and that type of thing, you end up inviting people in, but it's really who's going to be the end user potentially, because they just have those who participate as a stakeholder come from a different place versus somebody, a worker who like, I don't know what any of this is. And we're very fortunate to have Scott, unfortunate what he's been through, but he's been able to provide a perspective that many of us fortunately don't have. So it's just an observation question. Thank you.
Thank you. We are always looking for ways that we can test things out with, real people, as it were. So if you have any ideas and suggestions for how we can reach folks, we'd love to hear it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Scott Strickland has his hand raised. So
yeah, I was going to maybe request a quick 5-minute caucus just to discuss some ideas about this, so we can come back a little more uniform, perhaps. But perhaps after Dave Berenberg has made his comment or question. I don't know if that would be relevant to something we'd want to discuss in caucus.
we'll definitely do that. So that would be for us to sort of pause this public meeting and then go offline to caucus and then re-engage. Is that what you're saying, Scott? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So Teresa, do we have those links? For the caucus?
You all can talk amongst yourselves. What I'm doing right now is I am assigning you to the standing virtual rooms, making sure that the members you're in your proper space. So I apologize for the funny faces. I'm literally looking through right now to make sure.
Okay, and we'll let David go ahead and give his comments. Or did you not want to now?
No, I can very briefly. Let me get rid of that echo. I just got my power back, so
Yay.
I'm turning off. Yeah, thank you to Marcy's folks for restoring power to our neighborhood. Just quickly, SAFE is going through a process too of trying to focus on how to make the system easier to navigate for workers, and we are looking at utilizing a bunch of different survey tools. And we would love to be able to, as part of this discussion, present just some of the things that we're looking at to try to increase the voice of injured workers in the process as we, try to make it easier to navigate. And we'd love to present that to you and get your feedback as a group of, what we're doing and if there are other ways to try to involve the voice of the consumer in the process too. So just wanted to throw that in or make that request.
Thank you. All right, are we almost ready to?
I think so. Just one question. John, are you participating by phone? I think we lost him. Okay, nope, I am ready to go. So I am going to click one button. You'll go to your respective rooms and we will be in recess.
And then how do we exit the room? Like remind us of the process of how we're gonna.
Yeah, how do we get in the room?
I literally click a button and you will go into your respective breakout rooms. So it's like, like you're in a call that like the breakout room, that's, the standard terminology. And then from there, it's been a while since I've gone into them. So I think I have the ability to peek in. You can also message me as well. So if you want to have somebody else in the audience that's here, join your breakout room, I can do that manually as well. I just need to know.
And there's a button that you can just leave the breakout room.
Yes,
and
you
it
can do
brings
that
it
as well.
back there.
Yep. And then you can also send me a private message too for anything.
Fancy.
Yeah. So, okay. If you're ready to go, then I will click the button and we will recess.
Okay, thank you.
I think most everybody is back. I've started the recording again. So yep, I think everybody's back.
All right, well, thank you, Administrator Van Winkle. Welcome back after the recess to the December MLAC meeting. And the two caucuses met to pause to discuss the work plan. And so I will open the floor again for discussion or a report on what the caucuses came up with. So I see Margaret has her hand raised. So.
Thank you. Thank you. We discussed the fact that a stakeholder has approached us indicating that they have concerns about retaliation against injured workers and would like MLAC to look at this point number 2 on our projected work plan. And we talked about exploring the extent of concerns that stakeholders might have, and also involving the ombuds for small business, the ombuds for injured workers, the SAFE Corporation, and other stakeholders, including the Northwest Workers Justice Project.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for that suggestion. Is there any questions or comments from, I guess the Labor Caucus all agrees, right, Margaret? I guess, I don't know. I
think that they might, I think that they might have further thoughts or, comments.
Okay, all right, well, I'll let Sarah had her hand raised first, so I'll let her comment from her point of view.
Thank you, Co-Chair Priest. I think working on the access and understandability of information and streamlining that can also help with intimidation and retaliation, because if injured workers have a better understanding of their rights, there might be less intimidation and retaliation opportunities. So I do believe they go hand in hand. But I like the idea of bringing in the ombuds offices and seeing where to start on that piece, and continuing to work on the access and understandability of the information in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Scott, did you have a question?
Yeah, complete agreement with Sarah. I think that was our discussion was kind of around communication and the importance of making sure that the communication of rights and responsibilities and all of that was done effectively for workers, so that workers are able to kind of enforce their rights, for insurers so that they're able to kind of help educate and stuff like that, and then for small businesses too, because we do recognize that sometimes it is just miscommunication or misunderstanding of issues. So I think that idea of kind of bringing everyone together to talk about that communication of rights and how we can do that in a way that addresses intimidation and retaliation, to have kind of a, anywhere where there's misunderstanding, miscommunication, or ignorance of what the laws and responsibilities are of the parties involved. Any way that we can work to clarify and streamline that, I think, is great. And I know that we'd identified, bringing on both of the ombuds to kind of, filter some stakeholder involvement. And I believe that the insurers, SAFE and some others have kind of brought this up. I know that Dave Barenberg had mentioned that they're working on kind of communications. And then the great point that Marcy had made about the testing the communications out in the wild, as it were. So I think that any of that we can do or have that kind of roll out testing or get feedback from workers and insurers and other folks in the field is always great. So I think, yeah, definitely, what Sarah said of trying to kind of intertwine all of that and address a few issues at once.
Okay, thank you. Tammy, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I agree. It seems like we can't just pick one, because some of these are, pretty interrelated. If you want to focus on this intimidation of the injured workers, we kind of need to also integrate in there the education for, small employers, for all employers, do that education piece and several things. We can't just pick one. We need to pick like 3 related ones because they're too intertwined. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's, when we were talking about that, that's what we were thinking, is that bringing in those groups helps kind of address 3 or 4 of these things at once. And not that this is the only thing that we would want to address or move forward on, depending on how much is on our plate with the long session. That kind of the first thing that we think would be easy to make some good headway on would be this kind of combined, enmeshed issue.
Sarah.
Along with that, I propose taking off a couple items on our work plan. The COVID one, I think we're post-COVID and we've gotten enough of the updates from the old guard. That's the word used there, so not mine. In terms of, the COVID issues. So I propose we take or, extract that from our work plan so we can focus on the current issues at hand. And also the MCO enrollment piece. I believe we've gotten a lot of the education piece from the MCOs, and moving forward with taking that off our work plan as well. So we can focus on the current issues of the information and the retaliation and intimidation.
So Tammy, I'll let you go after Marcy's got her hand raised as well.
Thank you. I was just gonna suggest that the other thing is we have these great ideas about all this information and communication. Have we analyzed really what the issue is in the communication? Is it because it's not available in multiple languages? Is it because of, like I get concerned when we're going to go solve this problem and we're going to make these things, but I wonder if we're even clear what it is that we're trying to address. And the work may have been done and I'm just kind of learning and catching up, but I just would advise us before we go diving deep in, like we've heard from stakeholders, this is a problem. So we have some specific examples we could reference. Well, what I would be wanting to do is go back and say, okay, tell me like how this is. Is it because maybe there was turnover in management? Maybe there was just the volume of things that happened during COVID. Maybe it's just that company culture that they don't believe in workers' comp. I don't know. I know on my end, in my space, a lot of my folks want nothing to do with workman's comp because the effort to do it. So I just want to make sure that we're clear about what the issue is before we try to solve the problem.
So it's a very good point. And I see there's other hands raised. I'll let them see if they answer that question. I'll let Tammy go first.
Okay. Marcy, I don't know if I have the full answer for you, but just being on the MLAC committee a long time, repeatedly, it has been brought up about injured workers being discriminated against or being afraid to file a claim. A lot of times it is somebody who doesn't have English as their first language, so they don't really understand their rights. But the reason why we talked about putting this on the work plan is time and time and time again, it has come up that injured workers are being talked out of filing their claim or intimidated not to file a work comp claim. And so that's why we wanted to discuss it. I don't remember, maybe Lynn could chime in, if it was specifically only injured workers who do not speak English as their first language. I think it was several different small businesses that also contributed to that. That's my opinion, and other people can chime in. The only thing I wanted to comment about Sarah's recommendation that we maybe take those 2 things off. Those are the last 2 things on page 1. And then the first item on page 3 is, worker timely and ongoing connection to healthcare. Haven't we been talking about that a lot in the subcommittee? And I'm wondering if we can maybe take that item off as well. Okay, I'll lower my hand.
All right, Scott, you're next in my queue, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think I agree with Marcy that we need some more information on kind of what the problem is that we're solving, because I think it would be really dependent on the industry. That, you know, there are places where it's a language barrier or a means of communication barrier, maybe where something's in, you know, a poster or flyer on a job site as opposed to being given to the individual worker, or something that's handed in a, you know, in a different scenario where there's not access to that information really for the worker that's been injured, or the employer who's involved in the claim or something like that. Whereas other times you may have information provided at hire that then is lost or misplaced, or, you know, somebody doesn't use for 3 years and maybe even outdated at that point. So I think that it kind of depends on the situation and depends on the industry, as to what the problem is that could be addressed. So I think that's a great point. And then I think, regarding Sarah's point, I think with the MCO enrollment, I know that we've done a ton of work on that, and I think that there's not a whole lot more to be done. But I know with my scenario and my situation, going through my claim, the MCO enrollment was a nightmare, partially because of the lack of communication, and the lack of training, and that only after care had stopped and I'd received a notice of rights was I able to enforce those rights, sort of again after there'd been the jarring stopping of care and I was put back on time loss. So I think that there's maybe a little bit of that left that would intertwine with the other work that we're discussing doing, in terms of communication, and streamlining some of that.
Thank you, Scott. Margaret?
Yes, I just wanted to speak to Marcy's point and also to Tammy's point, and that is I believe that the first step in our work should be reaching out to stakeholders, including SAFE and the Ombuds and Northwest Workers Justice Project and OTLA, to get information about their observations and their understanding of the nature and the extent of the problem. Because if there is no problem, or if the problem is very, very, very limited, then I'm not sure that we need to be doing any work. But I think that, and I agree that we really do need to, as our first step, engage stakeholders and other agencies on what the nature and the extent of the problem is.
Thank you. Sarah, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, to Marcy's point and then Scott's, I just hope that, you know, to get the proper information on where the problems lie, we have ample resources from the division to ensure that we can undertake our work plan adequately. So just making sure that we're properly supported would be helpful to know. And then to Scott's point on the communication piece, do you think that MCO communication could be put as a sub-bullet under the access and understandability of information, and then take it off as a whole bullet by itself if it's communication related and understanding? Does that make sense, Scott? My question there, is that something that could work?
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, I think it would kind of fit in with sort of the communication and ongoing intimidation and retaliation to some extent, a little bit of both. Because I do acknowledge, yeah, we've done a ton of work and got a lot of great information about that already. So we've progressed through most of that.
Okay, so is that something for Teresa to maybe as a sub bullet under both the access and understandability and ongoing intimidation and retaliation to include additional bullet to ensure that the MCO communication is attached there? And then we can take it off as a full unique bullet in and to itself.
That makes sense to me.
Could I get Sarah?
Did anyone have any issues with extracting or deleting the COVID bullet?
I haven't heard any.
None for me. I agree with that.
And then maybe also Tammy's suggestion of deleting the time loss. We have addressed that pretty extensively, and
Yeah.
we have a plan moving forward. So I think, you know, it is ongoing and should be deleted from our work plan.
Okay. Speak up, I guess. Does anybody have any objection with removing that? Okay, hearing none. It sounds like we're cleaning it up a bit. All right, Lynn, you've been very patient. I'll let you speak next.
Thanks, Patrick. Just getting back to Marcy's point. I think one of the issues with communications was that it's not necessarily just about language, it's about how people learn and different approaches to the information. If you're not a reader and workers' comp is dense, you may not be able to either understand or find accessible the information that's out there. So it's really about trying to do it in different formats in ways that will really reach people.
Good point. Thank you, Lynn. Margaret, your hand is raised. Is it still raised from before? Okay, you don't have more comments. Okay. Well, that was a lively discussion. Oh, see, Sarah, I've got your hand up again.
Sorry, just for clarification, once this work plan is updated, will we get to review it then, Teresa? Is that?
Yes, and actually my thought is, because during the recess, Karen and I were talking a little bit, and this was actually on my to-do list. It kind of fell through the cracks because of the subcommittee, but it's appropriate time to do this. What we're proposing to do is kind of clean this up, put into like a more organized fashion to, again, incorporate, for example, what was discussed, making the changes, incorporating what Sally discussed today. There's also likely, there is the possibility of legislation that'll be under your review that could be part of this work plan. And then I also thought about expanding this as well about what you have been, what you all have done in the prior year. So that would include the subcommittee and also the different topics under the 2022 session legislative review.
So Teresa, my understanding you to say that this will be a backward looking as well about accomplishments?
If you want to do that, yes, because just, it could be a bit part of that too. Is just say, this is what we've been working on. This is what we would like to work on. Yeah, yes. And then also, again, the reflection of striking the COVID piece of it. So it stays on there. And then also to, going back to prior topics in this meeting, also including the subcommittee's recommendations as well. So when the subcommittee is reopened, there is a formal marker.
Well, that makes sense because they did it, penned it,
Yes.
So that makes sense for it to be on the work plan. All right, Sarah, did you have your hand raised again?
Yeah, sorry. I'm personally not interested in doing work on backdated information. I think that's already, taken care of. I personally prefer to look forward and on what we can accomplish, not what we have accomplished, but that's just my own opinion.
I tend to agree. I mean, I wouldn't mind having that as maybe a reference document, but that's additional work that I don't know. Nobody on the caucus that I know of has asked for it. Maybe it's helpful for the department or division or would be useful for someone else. But I think focusing on like a unique list of things that are what we're forward looking on seems important. It's been of value to me when we look at it periodically. Is there any other comments about it or recommendations?
I'm fine either way.
All right. Well, that was a good lively discussion. I don't know that we need to act on any of it. I think the Teresa will, I don't know, maybe do it before 12/31 and hand it off to Kara to bring it to us at our next meeting. I'm not sure, but there'll be a follow-up of a redlined work plan to show changes that we could then, discuss again at a future meeting?
Yeah, we theoretically can do that. And it also, we'll likely have it in a separate document because going back to the prior like session bills for review, we do keep a document of that itself. So we should know the scope of legislation in early January. So by the next slated scheduled meeting, which is on the 19th, we will be able to have something incorporate your revisions to the work plan and also include the matrix of current list of bills.
Okay, all right.
I
well,
think the bills can be outside this work plan, correct?
Yes, it
Or
will
do
be
we
outside the
wanna-
work plan. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, there might be topics that dovetail in, that the bill may focus on things that dovetail into the work plan, but the actual list will be a separate document.
Marcy, I see you raised your hand.
Teresa, have they made committee assignments yet? Because as you talk
No.
about all these new legislative.
I know they have not. No. And
All
I've
right.
heard, it's usually actually from my experience, and I was a committee administrator before, but actually both Kara and I worked at the legislature's staffing committees before our respective start times here. It's usually right around this time. I've heard it may not be until after the holidays as well. But we do know that amongst the things that happen on January 9th, which is the constitutional, this when all the legislators, the governor-elect, the Boley commissioner-elect will be sworn in, they will be doing first readings of bills. So we will at least know that the scope of it then.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion on the work plan? I think we'll just pause on the work plan and wait for our redlined copy that we'll look at next time around. But there are several changes, some deletions, and what we'll focus on. And maybe in the future, Scott and I or other interested parties could meet again. I think this came as a result of a meeting to kind of decide what collectively we wanted to work on, and that might be something to consider in the future as well too. But I think as we get started with our legislative session, our work may be cut out for us. We don't really get to be as freeform as we have been the last couple of meetings. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Is there any other business to bring before the committee today?
Nope, actually just one item because I did receive an email from a stakeholder yesterday. The webpage for the 2023 MLAC meetings has now been published. It also includes the current full committee meeting schedule for 2023, including the tentative dates for legislation review.
Thank you for that update. All right, well, if there is nothing else, I guess I would seek a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move that this is Marcy for the record. I move that we adjourn today's meeting.
Thank you, Marcy.
Lynn, second.
And a second from Lynn. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Okay, all right, well then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in January. Have a very happy holiday.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Merry Christmas, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.